Greetings, fellow pack members. My name's the Podium, and welcome back to the Minmus mining operations series. This is the fourth and final part of the Minmus mining operations series, because I was finally able to figure out the problem with the mining vehicles that I had in the last episode. Originally, I was going to go for an entire ground base where I would have a complex series of vehicles, rockets, cranes, just doing everything that they can to get as much ore as they can. I found that it was actually a lot easier to have it all done by a vehicle, a single vehicle. Just collect the ore, refine it if you can, collect even more ore, bring it up, and have it refined at the space station. And by doing this, I ended up making 3 more vehicles which would land, so I would have 4 vehicles total that would land on the surface, mine at the mining site, and do whatever it is that they need to do for an extended period of time. They do need some work. I went through a few other ideas, like the vehicle that you see me looking at right now. I went through a few more ideas where I was trying to combine parts of the vehicle together, just so that way I can have everything within itself. So I would have the vehicle that I'm currently looking at the inside of right now, and I would simply just fill it up with fuel, fill it up with ore, have it sent up, convert the oil into fuel, and just basically get as much fuel as I can into the station, or as much ore into the station as you can see in that module right there. Then I found out that it was easier doing it with 4 smaller vehicles instead of 1 big vehicle. I do have that ship that's right there, which is supposed to be transferring fuel, liquid fuel and oxidizer, over to the asteroid mining station, which is currently in low carbon orbit. This would allow any vehicles that I would be placing in low carbon orbit to have easy access to all of this extra fuel, and it would allow them to prepare themselves for long interplanetary journeys. Again, originally this was all supposed to be for Kerbal Space Program 2. This was supposed to be in preparation for interstellar travel, where I would have a system of vehicles set up in each and every single celestial, around each and every single celestial body, basically around the moons, the smaller moons, the moons that have plenty of fuel, the moons that I could easily set up operations for, everything as far as that goes. All of that was supposed to be a part of this, and a part of Kerbal Space Program 2, which I'm still confused at the moment, because people are saying, yes, they're going to continue working on it because they actually been bought by a different company. No, they're not going to continue working on it because the original developers approached it the wrong way. They didn't do it correctly. And there's a few people that are in the middle that are optimistic that something can be done about it, but they're not too optimistic that anything would really return to KSP2, because another company is now working on a Kitten Space Agency video game, which is currently in the early works, but the company that's currently working on this game is actually approaching it by saying that they're going to have a early access release for the game, and it's going to be free. Only just so only that everyone's able to go ahead and experience the game, able to understand what needs to work, what's not working, just kind of giving themselves a little bit of feedback. Alright, let's go ahead and get out of this. And there's the little vehicle. God, I really want to nickname it Mickey Mouse just because of the damn solar panels in the ears. But yeah, no, the way that they're approaching this is a lot better than the way the developers for KSP2 were approaching it. They released a early access version of the game, which you had to pay for, and they didn't deliver. So for those of you who had to pay like between $60 and $80, I forgot the exact price, a lot of those people, including myself, are really upset that they didn't deliver. And they didn't approach the game that they should have approached it with. I'm pretty sure that developers for Kitten Space Agency, or I'm just going to say KSA for now, are working on a whole new processing system. So that way the game is actually able to run instead of lagging after every single update or having to have your computer do most of the work. So that way you're not going to require a supercomputer in order for you just to be able to get into the game, never mind play it. But yeah, no, like I said, for KSA, it's early, so we'll see how everything goes. There you can see the second vehicle, or third vehicle. But there is a total of 4 Minmus mining vehicles, or MMVs, and they have been my main choice because of the last vehicle that I had set. The last vehicle that I had set up in the last episode. Now, I was trying to see if the issue was just with the solar panels or if it was with the battery. I was doing a few tests with having the vehicles mining for an extended period of time in certain areas, just so that way I can tell what areas would not only have more ore compared to the other regions, but trying to understand what exactly I could do to improve the vehicle. Originally, it was supposed to be a prototype. I went ahead and created a larger vehicle, which you saw docked to the Minmus station earlier, and it was supposed to somewhat resemble the bottom half of Starship. the original lander design, which was supposed to have the landing pegs at the bottom, and it was supposed to be able to carry the extra fuel, supposed to be able to carry ore as well, and it was supposed to be able to not only collect it, but also refine it, and then collect even more ore, launch it, give itself a good amount of fuel for a couple of runs, and then it would have to just go through the whole process all over again. The only issue that I had, however, was that I needed to figure out what I wanted to sacrifice as far as time, efficiency, fuel capacity, ore capacity, and figure out what would be in the best interest for each planet. For Minmus, it's not that big of a moon. It's actually one of the smaller moons, but it's not the smallest moon. So, for instance, for a planet around the same size as Minmus, I could use a vehicle like the one that you see on the screen. For a planet that is smaller, I could handle having a larger vehicle because it would be able to carry not only a lot more ore, but it would be able to carry a lot less fuel. It wouldn't need as much to go up to the station, which will probably be in a very, very low orbit. But there's all of this to consider. But I stuck with this design. It's a lot lighter, it's a lot faster, it's a lot more efficient. I'm not having issues with controlling it with the surface surface thrusters. It's not overheating. It's collecting enough ore over a specific period of time, and as you can see, it's able to keep its charge. There was, however, a little glitch which I realized later on, which this is the first recording that I did of me running the test on the vehicle, which is that for a split second the electric charge actually does start to go down, but if I speed the game up fast enough while it's collecting all of these resources, then the electric charge no longer becomes valid. It doesn't register in the game. So what happens is it immediately gets a whole bunch of electric charge. It's just registering, oh yeah, there's sunlight, there's solar panels, there's electricity. You're getting electricity. Not the fact that I have all of this equipment running that is consuming all of this electricity. So I do have to redesign the solar panels again to give it something bigger. Probably move the radiators down a little bit more, or decrease the size of the radiators because they're not exactly doing that much. Increase the size of the solar panels and see how that works. But as I mentioned earlier, there were a few things which I had to sacrifice. One of them, as you can see, is its engines. I went for the smaller engines only because of the fact that, again, Minmus is a very small moon. It's not the smallest moon, but it's small enough to where I can use some of the lower thrust engines to be able to get a vehicle like this up into orbit. It's not using a lot of fuel, and it doesn't really need a lot of fuel. It doesn't even really need a lot of thrust. This makes the vehicle really slow, no matter what planet it's on. The downside is that it takes forever for me to be able to get up to the mining station. So I can look into decreasing the orbit of the mining station so that way it's just above the surface of Minmus, and so that way something like this is easier for me to go ahead and perform, or it's easier for the vehicle to be able to catch up to the station without having to use so much fuel. Or I could just use this knowledge for future references for when I want to go to, say, Duna, and I want to use its moon as a base for collecting resources, so that way I have another spot to collect fuel for missions going back and forth between one planet and another. The other idea that I had for the vehicle, which was the larger one, which I was just talking about, can be used for the smaller planets. The only issue that I would have is a matter of changing the size of the engines, because look how fast this was already able to get up into orbit. I haven't refueled this vehicle yet. Obviously it's running only on like a little over half of its fuel. If I have a bigger vehicle and I'm able to go ahead and continuously bring resources from the surface of Duna's moon to the station that's surrounding it or orbiting it, then what I'll be able to do is I would be able to go through several runs without having to refuel, which means I would have a large income of ore, and it would allow me to reserve so much more fuel over the smaller moons or planets. Again, this still is in the prototype stage. I'm not doing any more videos for Minmus, but these vehicles will be used as a reference for... Forgot about that. These vehicles will be used as a reference for figuring out what it is that I need to do to make my life a little bit easier, and what I need to do to have a great income of ore, I should say, and being able to save as many resources as I possibly can. Here you can see the other vehicle which I had ready. It's currently using the Bobcat engines, which is another engine that has a little bit of a lower thrust compared to the other engines. However, like I said, I might change that to where I could have some of the side-mounted engines, the smaller side-mounted engines, possibly the same one that I have for the current prototype which I'm using. This one is a bit more difficult to be dealing with, only because of the fact that it has so much weight added to it that it's a little bit hard for me to control it. And considering the fact that the vehicle is not exactly in the best condition, I haven't really modified it specifically to handle Minmus terrain. I just threw a bunch of parts together and crossed my fingers, hoping and prayed to see if it'll actually work, and it does. This vehicle was supposed to be the original solution for the electricity problem and the capacity problem and the fuel problem. The only issue that I have is that even if it's easy for me to bring the vehicle to high altitude or low altitude orbit, or have it deorbit, the challenge is being able to safely land the vehicle, give itself enough time and enough energy to collect all the resources that it needs to collect, launch the vehicle, redock it, which you can already tell how much fuel and mono-repellent it ended up having to use just to dock with the station, which was a lot harder than it should have been, but that could also be my bad on my part. Transfer all of the ore, all of the fuel and resources, and to see how much of an income that I could actually get from ore itself. Now, I could also redesign the station so that way it's, again, lower. It could handle extra fuel, it could handle the extra ore capacity, or it could be able to dock, or it will be able to dock to a vehicle of this size. Again, this is all supposed to be a test. This was all supposed to be a test for Kerbal Space Program 2, so that way I would have something in the future, just to have something pre-planned, ready to go. But obviously, with the confusion of whether or not I would actually be able to continue playing KSP2 if this new buyer, or if the new KSA game would allow me to have something like this available, it's unknown. I have no idea what the future holds. That is, of course, except for what the future holds for Duna. This is an old recording. I actually have the rover already landed. I have communications and surface scanners all set up around Duna, ready to go. And I am ready to start sending vehicles over to not only look at the terrain of Duna, but Duna's moon. So, like I said earlier, this is the last episode of the Minmus mining operation series, and it now marks the beginning of the Duna mining operation series, which I am really excited for. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see all of you in the next video. Bye-bye.